Also this hour, the video exposing the reality of the youth crime crisis in Alice Springs, why it's even shocked locals. Peace talks with Senator Linda Reynolds and Brittany Higgins collapse as a second day of mediation is abandoned. Trump's Super Tuesday sweep will cross live to the US to break down the results. And after a 2-month hiatus, reports the Princess of Wales is entering back into the public eye. Or is she? We'll speak to one royal expert with the inside scoop. But first, now how's this for a complete stitch-up? We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and Workplace Relations Minister Tony Burke has gone on a spending spree with your money to the tune of over 50 grand. Tony Burke forked out $57,000 of taxpayer cash in a 4-day US spending spree, where he had lunch and dinner with the Australian ambassador and attended a meeting with a US senator. The trip, taken between July 11 and 15 in 2022, was for the 30th Australian-American Leadership Dialogue. Well, let's break it down. This bill included $44,000 on business class flights for him and a staff member, more than $8,000 on hire cars, including having one car waiting on hand for 10 hours, $4,000 on accommodation, $1,066 for new passports for him and a staffer, including a priority processing fee. $57,000 over 4 days. 4 days. Now, I did a quick Google search of Sydney to Washington, DC return with Qantas, and you're looking at $15,000 for one person if you were going this month. Yet, Travel on Your Purse Tony spent $44,000. And he has billed you $8 grand on hire cars alone. I mean, seriously, what sort of expensive cars was he asking for? Not to mention paying for one to just sit around for 10 hours. We also picked up the tab for the minister's staffer to dry clean 10 items of laundry. In fact, his 4-day extravaganza cost twice as much as Defence Minister Richard Marles's expenses for the same visit. Here was Claire O'Neill attempting to justify it this morning.
So much of our defence, of our trade, of our national security depends on these close relationships that we have with other countries, and it does require overseas travel. That's what Minister Burke was doing.
Defence?
Workplace relations,
employment
manager
relations
of government
minister.
business. That doesn't really sound very internationally focused.
No. Okay. No, look, we understand you have to travel.
Almost all federal ministers will go overseas.
Nobody is arguing that overseas travel is not necessary, but to go on a luxurious binge is unacceptable. But seriously, this guy has barely made an impact since he was made Workplace Relations Minister, but it hasn't stopped Travel on Your Purse Tony from taking this lavish trip and billing you for it. And he's a repeat offender. According to The Australian, in a 7-year period, Burke claimed more than $4.6 million or almost $60,000 a month in expenses. Remember when he billed us $12,000 in 2012 for a family business class trip to Uluru? Then 5 years later, voluntarily paid back $8 grand. Yeah, thanks, Tone, for the refund. Good one. I mean, seriously, go figure. The issue here is it presents a broader problem about Polly's travel entitlements. Defence Minister and VIP flyer Richard Marles spent $3 million of taxpayers' money on plane travel since the last election, yet these two get off scot-free. Minimal scrutiny over multiple incidents. And remember, Bronwyn Bishop lost her career over it, over one incident. Complete double standards, as we always see. It's one rule for the left and another for the rest of us. Now, we talk about youth crime ad nauseum, but we are going to keep talking about it. Despite constant pledges from national leaders to fix this crisis, an online blogger, Anthony Lees, known as Spanion, has exposed the reality of life in Alice Springs. Spanion travels the world to take viewers inside some of the most dangerous and notorious locations, and his latest video will shock you. What you're about to see is filmed after 1 a.m. on the streets of Alice.
Machete. Matey's got a machete on. Pull it. Damn it. Bro, this is chaos. There's one lad with a knife, one lad with a machete.
Now, we've blurred the children in this, but as you'll see, there are hundreds of kids roaming the streets. They're fighting, armed with machetes, knives. They are not scared. In fact, Spanian described Alice Springs as Australia's most dangerous city. Now, he himself is no stranger to crime, having spent about 13 years in prison for drug dealing, assault and robbery. But even he admits he has never seen anything like this before. In the 1 hour video, which has racked up more than 700,000 views on YouTube in a day, locals tell him the punch-ons are non-stop and that this is their normal. It's a video that should send shivers up the spines of politicians. It resembles the streets of a warfare-ridden third world country. Yet this is Australia in 2024. And that video comes almost a year after the Northern Territory government introduced measures aimed at curbing the city's crime crisis. What's it achieved? Clearly, nothing. Meanwhile, in New South Wales, kids as young as 11 are getting away with violent crimes across the regions because courts rule they do not know right from wrong. You heard that correct. The Daily Telegraph can reveal one of the biggest issues facing New South Wales police is the test for dolai incapax, the Latin phrase for incapable of evil. The test means that for a youth between 10 and 14 to be guilty of a crime, police must first prove in court the child knows the difference between right and wrong, leading to many instances of repeat offenders escaping multiple convictions or any lasting punishment. And police sources say kids are becoming so confident of getting away with offences, some had dubbed committing crime doing dolly. Now, in one example, an 11-year-old boy from Dubbo faced a children's court for the 70th time in his life this week. 70th time. He's 11 years old. And this kid knows more about what he is doing than the magistrates that keep letting him off. Smart crim. And while governments around the country are still planning for talk fests on how to fix this crisis, perhaps it's time to start looking at the Bail Act. The justice system can't keep giving these repeat offenders leeway, and calls are mounting for change.
So all we need now is an amendment to the Children Criminal Proceedings Act that basically says that if you've been before a court, let's give them 2 or 3 strikes, right? Because we're talking about kids. Let's not be ogres here. 2 or 3 times. Dolai incapax does not apply to you anymore because clearly you know that this is wrong because you've ended up in a court every single time.
How many chances do these young kids need? Even Queensland magistrates have granted bail to young offenders against the request of police in about 2/3 of cases in the past 18 months. Enough is enough. We are sick of the inaction and sick of the pollies telling us that they're going to fix it. They're not. They have no ideas. They need to do something and do it urgently before more lives are destroyed and innocent people are killed. Joining me now live is our panel this evening, former Labor Minister Graham Richardson and former Victorian Liberal Party President Michael Kroger. Good evening to you both. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I want to start on Tony Burke's spending this eye-watering $57,000 of taxpayer money on a 4-day trip to the US. Richo, surely this does not pass the pub test.
Not in any pub I've been to, that's for sure. No, I think it's a bit rich. I think Tony went a bit over the top. He's a friend of mine, used to work for me, but sometimes we all make a mistake, and I think this is his.
Well, this is quite an eye-watering mistake. It's a hell of a lot of money to be spending. Michael, can the minister really justify billing taxpayers that much money, especially during a cost of living crisis?
No, Danica, of course not. Look, I must declare I've been to the Australia-America Leadership Dialogue on many occasions, and it is an excellent function, and I don't begrudge Australian federal politicians going. I think you do learn a lot. You meet a lot of important people, have very high-level American contacts there. However, the way to judge this, Danica, is if I was spending my money, and when I've been to the conference, I've paid myself, obviously. Would I spend $44,000 on 2 business class fares? No, of course I wouldn't. I'd sack the travel agent who gave you a quote like that. So is it proper that Tony has spent $22,000 on a business class fare? No. And secondly, more egregiously, who keeps a car running for 10 hours and runs up an $8,000 bill? If I was paying that for myself, would I keep the car out there all day long at my expense? No, I wouldn't. So, Tony, pay that money back, my friend. Do the decent thing. Repay the money from the car. Repay $10,000 or $12,000 from the airfares, and make peace with voters, because this certainly does not pass the pubs test, Danica.
Well, this is a thing, and you raise a good point. Would he have spent that eye-watering amount if it was coming from his own purse? I highly doubt it. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, Teal MP Allegra Spender has had her invitation to speak at a Jewish charity event cancelled after signing a letter to Penny Wong urging for funding to go back to UNRWA, despite evidence that several of its employees engaged in Hamas's October 7 attacks. Richo, what is she thinking politically here? I mean, she's got one of the biggest Jewish electorates in the country in Wentworth. Surely this is not good for her from a political level.
No, it doesn't look too flash, does it? I think that the Teals have got a long way to go before they can start to consider themselves a proper political unit. They are way away from, miles away from that. They are amateurs in many respects. They look like it, sound like it, and walk like it. So they're ducks. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they fare next year. But Michael, seriously, that's not going to go down very well in her electorate.
No, and there's a big Jewish population in Kooyong, here in Melbourne, and in Goldstein. Shame on you, Allegra Spender, and shame on the other Teals, but particularly Allegra Spender, who's got, as you say, a very large community. I was at a shul there a couple of months ago on the Sabbath, and you know, the Jewish community are feeling very aggrieved by what has happened and what's happened in the Western world since. And Allegra, you are profoundly ignorant, my friend, if you think money should be given back to UNRWA, an organisation some of whose staff members were involved in the October 7 massacre, people whose teachers are members of Hamas, people who have taught anti-Jewish hatred in UNRWA schools for years, ignorant UNRWA people who didn't notice that tunnels were being built under their schools and that the electricity was going underground. They obviously didn't know that years and years of electricity going, they had no idea that Hamas were building under their schools. I mean, UNRWA is in disgrace worldwide. No money should go to UNRWA. And Allegra Spender tonight, hang your head in shame. What you've done in your electorate of Wentworth, shame on you.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, there's been so many vigils that have been held in Wentworth, demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations by the Jewish community. It's just unbelievable. The backlash, I'm sure, will be quite large. Now, let's move on, because 2 climate lunatics have been jailed for 3 weeks after parking a truck across 3 city-bound lanes on the Westgate Bridge in Melbourne yesterday morning. Now, this stunt caused a traffic jam so bad that there were hours-long waits in traffic, and one heavily pregnant woman had to deliver her baby on the side of the road because she was unable to get to hospital. Richo, thankfully 2 teachers driving past were able to stop and help this woman, and all is well. But this kind of idiotic stunt could have gone seriously wrong.
Could have gone very wrong. I just shake my head when I see things like this. You know, you can protest about anything you like, climate change or anything else. But the one thing you have to do is allow for the fact that millions of people around you have got lives to lead. And so you can make your point, but you've got no right to hold up all those people living their lives. That's just not part of the game. And as every time I see it, I'll condemn it.
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, Michael, this has happened in your home city. It's not the first time it's happened. But what these people don't realise is they're not doing anything for their own cause. No,
well, but what it does do, it gets Australia-wide publicity, And people generally think, well, they're very angry about it, these demonstrators. Perhaps they've got a reason to be so angry. Perhaps there is a climate emergency. So the left know exactly what they're doing. They don't hold these demonstrations for no reason. And of course you have people saying, oh, you know, they upset me. Oh, my car was in the queue for an hour and a half. The left know exactly what they're doing. They've got their point across for free. These people will go to jail for 3 or 4 weeks. What's happened in Australia is, and in a lot of the Western world, the tolerance, the freedom to demonstrate through our freedom of speech history has now led people to cross the line between the free expression of demonstrations and the free expression of ideas. It's now crossed the line into, if I destroy your day or damage your day, that's too bad for you. I've got a freedom to demonstrate. So there's got to be a point at which governments say, listen, demonstrate in parks, demonstrate on footpaths, demonstrate wherever you like, but do not interfere with the daily lives of other people, because they have a right to, and the right is to go up and down roads and freeways without you people messing up their day. And as Richo said, thank goodness that woman's baby could have died. Who knows what could have happened? So, you know,
Absolutely.
Again, shocking.
It really, really is. Now, we know, of course, Matilda's captain and homegrown hero Sam Kerr, she will fight to have charges against her dropped after being accused of harassing a police officer in London. Richo, this is the problem here. She failed to inform Football Australia that she was facing a criminal charge. Do you think that she should be stripped of her captaincy?
No, I don't. Look, she's an Australian hero, because I think they don't like you using the word heroine anymore. So that's with an E at the end.
Yeah.
So I'll stick with hero, but she's an Australian hero, and as far as I'm concerned, anything I could ever do to help her, I don't know the woman, but anything I could do to help her, I would do. And I think you can, you know, this is a storm in a teacup. I think we'll all get up tomorrow morning and forget about it.
Yeah, what do you think, Michael? Do you agree, storm in a teacup or something more serious?
Well, not a storm in the teacup, but I hope she doesn't get stripped of this title. I hope she stays in the title. I hope everyone accused of crimes, misdemeanours, whatever, stay in their positions until the matter is determined. Kerr is innocent till proven guilty. What's been proved against her? Nothing. Why should she be standing down? She shouldn't. And all those other people in our community who are charged with charged with things or accused of things, until you are proven guilty, nothing has been proven against you. So Kerr should stay in that position. Whether she should have informed Soccer Australia is another matter, but she should stay in that position. If she's found guilty, there are consequences. But nothing's been proved, and so good luck to her. Stay where you are.
Well, she does have that right to the presumption of innocence, so we'll see what the courts say. Now, we're running out of time,
Correct.
but we've got to go through this, because images of teachers at a Brisbane school have been leaked online, and look, they are bizarre, to say the least. We've got the photos here from Balmoral State High School. Now, one of them shows a teacher kneeling on the floor while another is dressed as a nun. This one shows a teacher sitting shirtless in a gold costume with his legs open in a chair. And then the third reveals a teacher pretending to pour milk in the mouth of a female colleague. Look, Richard, I don't even know what to say about this. It's quite disturbing. It's so unprofessional.
Certainly didn't happen at Morris Brothers Cogra, I can tell you that.
You wouldn't have been allowed.
No, look, it's pretty bizarre. Obviously, bizarre is the right word. I don't know why people do this sort of thing. I'll never understand it, because there's an inevitability about it finishing up in the media, and just as it is now, it always will. So if you're a mug, you allow it to happen, and anyone who's got half a brain knows never to get involved with that sort of stuff.
No, Michael, what were they thinking? I mean, this calendar...
They weren't thinking. That was the problem.
The desk. It was on the desk. The students could have seen these awful pictures.
I don't think they were thinking. And my father was a school teacher for 40 years. I know what Dad would have thought about this. He would have just been shocked and appalled. It didn't happen. It didn't happen in his day at his school down here in Melbourne. So no, a bad day for the teachers, a bad day for the school, and a bad day for the Education Minister, I think, up there.
Absolutely, a real shocker. Graham Richardson, Michael Kroger, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We'll Stay with us. Coming up, a second day of mediation is abandoned as peace talks between Linda Reynolds and Brittany Higgins collapses. Plus, we'll cross live to the US where Donald Trump is celebrating a near-clean Super Tuesday sweep. Welcome back to the program. Well, mediation talks between Brittany Higgins, David Shiraz and Senator Linda Reynolds have fallen apart. Today was the trio's last opportunity to thrash out some sort of settlement in the defamation case after yesterday's marathon meeting went nowhere, but the hearing was scrapped completely. Senator Reynolds is suing the couple separately for defamation over comments they posted on social media. If they fail to reach an agreement, there's going to be another long, costly and taxing trial. Joining me now live is the Australian's legal affairs contributor, Chris Merritt. Chris, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. The matter has now been vacated today. What does that mean and what does that suggest?
It suggests we're in for another legal circus, I think is the technical term. This will be a replay of the spectacular defamation case between Bruce Lerman and Network 10. Lisa Wilkinson has been subpoenaed to appear. Katie Gallagher, the Finance Minister, has also been subpoenaed to give evidence. I think this is what happens when proper process is not followed. Had proper process been taken right at the very beginning by Ms Higgins going directly to the police when she had a complaint to make, instead of going to the media, that would have helped. Down the track, there was another mistake, and this one I think is really significant. When the government was mediating with Ms Higgins, it intentionally excluded Linda Reynolds from that mediation, her former employer. This has resulted in a payout of $2.4 million, ostensibly for her poor treatment while an employee of Linda Reynolds. Linda Reynolds was not happy about that. She was subjected to financial coercion by the government to keep her out of that so that she couldn't put her perspective on what happened. She couldn't test Ms Higgins's argument. So this case gives her an opportunity that she was denied originally to put her case. She hasn't had her time to lay her cards on the table and say exactly what happened. That's another reason.
She's got nothing to lose.
Not a thing. And everything to gain, quite frankly. We know that David Shiraz is not quite impecunious, but without employment. But we also know that Ms Higgins has plenty of resources. But I don't think this is about money. I think this is about vindication on both sides. They're both seeking to use
reputation.
Yes, it's reputation, but it's using the courts. I've used this line before, but they're using the courts to shape reality. Both sides need a clear victory. I think it's going to be very difficult for Ms Higgins. There's always also been, in the recent past, a couple of setbacks to her narrative. We saw that in the Lerman defamation case.
Yes.
I think there'll be more challenges to her argument coming up.
It's fair to say then, as you said, this is looking like it's increasingly likely going to go to trial. They've set down a 6-week trial for July. Chris, that would be an extremely costly exercise. I know you mentioned that money's not necessarily a factor here, but that's got to cost a lot of money.
Bizarre when you look at what this is all about, and this is why the Supreme Court in WA was perfectly within its rights to push very hard to have this resolved by mediation, to get it off the court list. This is a debate, a dispute over a couple of tweets. That's the reality of it.
That's right.
But when you dig into it, it's also a debate about the Brittany Higgins narrative.
Yeah.
So I think the cost of the case will be massively out of proportion to the substance of what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like a giant web, and everyone who's been touched by this web has had their lives completely turned upside down, but we'll be watching that one closely. Now, I just want to ask you, because the ACT's disgraced former top prosecutor, Shane Drumgold, has managed to find himself a new job teaching an evidence law class at Canberra University. Nonetheless, academics at the university have expressed astonishment that he will be teaching students in an area of law which he was found by the Sofronoff inquiry to have deliberately flouted. Chris, what do you make of this appointment?
It is a little bit surprising, but look at it this way. He'll have a very authoritative view on the consequences that can befall a lawyer who doesn't properly understand the rules of evidence and the rules of advocacy. And we've seen that in the Sofronoff report. It goes into some detail about Mr Drumgold's failings as a lawyer, and quite frankly, Mr Drumgold is the perfect candidate to explain those failings and pitfalls to law students. So it is a startling appointment.
Ironically.
But if you're a law student and you want to see what could happen if you don't study the Evidence Act and the professional rules of conduct, this is the man to turn to.
This is it, exactly. How fascinating. Chris Merritt, always great to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Let's move on to the US now, where Donald Trump's Super Tuesday sweep has all but confirmed him as the Republican presidential nominee. At this time, the former president has secured a win in 13 out of 15 states, losing just Vermont to his Republican rival Nikki Haley, with Utah still counting votes. President Biden, the incumbent Democrat, with no serious rivals, won in all 15 states. For more, let's bring in co-founder of Based Politics, Brad Palumbo, live from Michigan. Brad, thank you so much for joining us. A big win for Trump. You'd say that this is a huge success for him.
Yeah, it's a huge win for him, and I got to be honest, this primary looks basically over. I'm not sure it was ever a really serious threat to Trump, but whatever chance there was that Nikki Haley would upset the apple cart and wrangle away this nomination from the former president, that chance looks to have gone the way of the wind, because I don't know how she could come back from this. I mean, she's lost at this point almost every competition. She's just won DC and Vermont, both relatively small and have a small number of delegates. It's close in a sense. I mean, when you look at where she was in the polls a few months ago versus now, but still the margins of these victories are often in the double digits. I don't see any path here other than Republicans rallying around Trump as their nominee yet again.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Nikki Haley has stayed in this competition now for the last few weeks, despite the results in the majority of the primaries. Do you think now she's going to call it quits? What do you think will happen here?
I think the only reason for her to stay in would be if she's quietly hoping or wondering if Donald Trump might end up being convicted of a crime or having something else come up with his health that requires him to step back, and then she'd be there waiting in the wings. But there's no political reason in terms of actually winning the nomination outright that she should stay in the race beyond this point. And we've already seen a bunch of her major donors, like Americans for Prosperity, basically just close their checkbooks at this point and say, yeah, I don't think this is going to work, Nikki. We're out. So once the money goes, the candidates tend to follow eventually.
Yeah, they're pretty much wiping their hands now, so there's no doubt that she'll have to pull out. Now, this is interesting because rumours, as we know, have been swirling for months that Michelle Obama may throw her hat in the ring to run for the Democrats, but her office has today finally confirmed that she will not be running. Was this a surprise, do you think?
No, political insiders here in the U.S. that are familiar with the way that Michelle Obama thinks and her team have never, it's always been kind of something the media thinks is a great idea. And to be clear, she would be a very strong candidate. But Michelle Obama hates politics and had to kind of be dragged along by Obama, who was very politically ambitious. The idea that she would run for the Democratic nomination has always been kind of wish casting. It's something a lot of people would like to see. But for her part, I mean, it's a complete headache. You're taking on one of the hardest jobs. There's no guarantee you'll win. You're putting yourself in the media scrutiny. You're bringing your family back into the spotlight. After already going through it for 8 years, it was always a stretch to think she was really going to try to go for it again.
I guess the thing is, there's been so many questions around Biden's cognitive ability, so you can't blame people for speculating. But why do you think so many Democrats are reluctant to go up against Joe Biden now?
Well, he has the full backing of the establishment. So anybody who comes in, I mean, they've rallied around him. And it boggles my mind because he's clearly mentally declined. He's clearly just kind of a figurehead at this point for an administration. And he's also, not not popular. The fact that Donald Trump has so much baggage, yet he's still beating him in many of the polls. And if you had a incumbent president that was doing even all right, you would expect him to beat somebody with all the baggage of a Donald Trump. But the fact that he's actually vulnerable to losing Trump after everything Trump's gone through, all his controversies, it's really a stunning indictment of Joe Biden's presidency, that Americans still don't think he's up for the job. They don't think he's mentally fit for office. And they think that his handling of the economy, of immigration, of all these key issues, of war overseas, all of it is not up to scratch. So it really, to me, is a stunning indictment of him, that people are so desperate for another candidate, and that somehow Trump is still looking like he's going to beat him.
Yeah, that's becoming clearer by the day, that's for sure. Now, Brad, a video of New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has gone viral after she lashed out at left-wing protesters who harassed her and called her to take a stronger position against Israel. This is the video.
And you're going to cut this and you're going to clip this so that it's completely out of context. I already said that it was, and y'all are just going to pretend that it wasn't over and over again. It's man. You're not helping these people, and you're not helping them.
You refuse to.
You're not helping them.
She was quite fired up there. But, Brad, look, there's no doubt about it. These protesters, they were quite hostile. They were aggressive. But you've pointed out today the irony in all of this is that AOC herself encourages these kinds of protests.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I find her tears kind of delicious, because just a few years ago, AOC tweeted, the point of protest is to make people uncomfortable. And to be clear, these people didn't harm her. They weren't trespassing. They didn't violate any laws. It's an aggressive form of protest. They were waiting for her outside of a movie theater and kind of hounding her and her fiance. But that is not a crime. And while I don't personally like that kind of protest, I think maybe we should all not do it. She's endorsed it time and time again. And so which is it, AOC? Is the point of protest to make people uncomfortable? Or are you a victim because people yelled at you outside of a movie theater? It really can't be both, at least not if your goal is to make any sense.
Exactly, the hypocrisy of it all. Brad Palumbo, great to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Well, still to come, Paul Keating lashes his own party. Will Labor MP Daniel Molino defend the former Prime Minister? He and Nationals leader David Littleproud join me next. Plus, breaking news, the bank turning its back on branches, going fully digital by October. That's next. Welcome back to the program. Well, Paul Keating has openly attacked the party he once used to lead. Again, this time slamming Foreign Minister Penny Wong for trying to rattle the China can at ASEAN. Labor ministers have today lashed Keating for his comments.
Look, he's entitled to his views. I don't lose sleep over it, but I would say this: it was a new position to be lectured about the country of whether or not I understood the country of my birth in Malaysia. But as I said, he's entitled to it.
This is a woman who, over the last 2 years, has made up for years and years of neglect. She's doing a fantastic job. So when it comes to a difference of opinion between Paul and Penny, I go for Penny any day.
I think Paul is wrong about Penny.
On Penny Wong, I think quite clearly he's wrong.
Keating also accused ASIO boss Mike Burgess of trying to undermine the Albanese government's effort to stabilise relations with China. Joining me now is Labor MP Daniel Molino and Nationals leader David Littleproud. Good to be with you all tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Daniel, we'll start with you, of course. What do you make of Paul Keating's comments today on Penny Wong?
Oh, hi, Danica. It's good to be here. So, look, I'll just say Paul Keating was a hero of mine, and he was really a big part of the inspiration for me joining Young Labor back during the Hawke Keating years, which unfortunately reflects my age. And I'm speaking on the superannuation objective bill when we go to Parliament next. So his legacy is huge. On this issue, I don't agree with him, and I think Penny has actually achieved a great deal in the last 18 months in stabilising our relationship with China. And I think there's been really constructive conversations during ASEAN. I, in fact, think it's amazing that we have a full complement of heads of state and national rulers here for ASEAN. It's really good for our country. So I don't agree with them on that. But look, there's lots that he's contributed to the country over a very long period.
David, Keating accused the foreign minister of rattling the China can. Why is he defending China so staunchly, do you think?
Well, look, I don't want to get into Paul Keating's comments. I don't necessarily agree with him hardly any of the time, but it's probably been nearly 30 years since he's last had a national security intelligence briefing. And I think it's important that if you're going to make commentary on something as important as that, you actually have the facts and you actually have the intelligence briefings behind you. I don't think it's helpful for a former Prime Minister to delve into this, particularly as something as sensitive as this, and that goes to the heart of our national security. I think you have a responsibility. It's a great privilege to become, and an honour, an achievement to become a Prime Minister of this country. But once you leave office, I think it's important you live up to the responsibility that you've been given and comment only when you have the facts in front of you. And the fact that I don't think Paul Keating would have seen any shred of evidence of an intelligence briefing for nearly 30 years doesn't make him an expert to be able to commentate. And I think that that comes with a responsibility that should adhere to into the future.
Yeah, a fair point. Now, in some breaking news this evening, Bankwest will transition to a digital-only bank by October this year, with 45 banks to close in October. David, I mean, the Nationals have been quite vocal about this for some time, and now it's been confirmed. What sort of an impact do you think this is going to have?
Yeah, in fact, the CEO, Matt Comyn, rang me only a few minutes ago to explain the situation. He made it clear in the Senate inquiry that we initiated around branch closures that this was going to happen with Bankwest. They were going to digitise, but they were going to stay within regional branches under the CBA brand. Now, they are the only bank that actually, in all fairness, have made a commitment not to close any regional branches until 2026. And I think the other banks should follow. But I think we also need to understand technology is coming. And we need to look at alternative solutions. And I think alternative solutions should be looking at licensed post offices in many of these regional communities. And banks should lift the amount that they pay for transactions, but even make capital investment for these licensed post offices to put places where transactions, but also lending interviews can take place in the privacy of the post office, where these communities can still need cash and still have the opportunity to have those services. And I think that's beholden on all the banks to do that and to invest in that. ANZ won't do that at all. And I think I've spoken to Anna Bligh about this to actually do something about it, because regional Australians can't be left behind, but we understand technology is coming. But let's have a sensible solution.
Well, that's it. I mean, there has to be some sort of a solution. Daniel, do you expect that other banks will end up following suit here?
Well, look, in a rare moment of bipartisanship, I'll agree with a lot of what David just said. And the committee that I chair, the House Economics Committee, has been undertaking a review of competition over the last 15 months. And one of the issues that came up with the banks was access to branches. And this is a big issue in the regions, but it's also an issue in communities like mine here in metropolitan Melbourne, where there's a lot of cold communities and a lot of elderly people who actually need to go into a branch. They don't feel comfortable using digital banking. So while the proportion of people in the community using digital services is really high and continues to rise, I think we do need to find solutions for that group of the community for whom that doesn't work. And, you know, the Australia Post option is one option. You know, in some regions, I know that some banks are trialling part-time branches where the staff might be doing back office work for part of the day. There's a few things out there, but I do think this is a policy issue that governments are going to have to grapple with over the next 10 to 20 years in relation to banking, and probably a range of other services too.
Well, that's it. I mean, whether we like it or not, it seems to be the way of the future. Now, the Stage 3 tax cut saga is not quite over yet, with hints today that the Coalition could reinstate the original Stage 3 tax cuts at the next federal election, but keep the revamped 16% tax rate for low-income workers. David, would the Nationals be on board with having another look at the tax package?
Well, the Nationals always support lower taxes for Australians. We think they're better placed to spend their own money, and we should only take what we need to run the services in this country. That's a principle we've held dear. Unfortunately, what happened with removing the Stage 3 tax cuts took away important tax reform
that future generations will pay. Those young men and women that are at university today are the ones that will cop this in the neck when they get to work and they climb through the tax brackets, because there'll be more money taken away from them. The stage 3 tax cut was after first 2 stages of tax relief was given to lower middle income earners, and there is a cost of living crisis that's been created by Labor and Canberra. And if they wanted to continue on with those stage 3 tax cuts, they could have, and given temporary and targeted relief, particularly around things like energy, accelerating more relief for energy support for those lower middle income earners, they could have still had that tax reform. So we'll see what happens in the budget, we'll see what mess is left, and then we'll obviously continue to work towards that value and principle that we've stood by as nationals of trying to return as much money back to Australians in being able to mean that they keep more than they earn. That's just common sense, and that's what the Nationals will continue to prosecute with. And obviously we'll work through that as a tax policy and as an election policy moving forward. But that's been our aspiration for generations, not just now.
Now, GDP figures came out today, and although they were essentially in line with market predictions, they still painted a pretty grim picture. Australia's economy only grew 0.2% over the December quarter, a nominal increase. Daniel, the government's out there today saying this is fantastic, but it's almost flatlining. What do you have to say about that?
So, look, I think that the key thing for me is that the narrow path that we were hoping to walk after we were hit by global inflation 18 months ago was that we wanted to see inflation come down. Monetary policy has been a part of that, and monetary policy was always going to have an impact on aggregate demand. But what we wanted to see was inflation come down and for the labour market, for unemployment, not to be hit too hard. And what we've found is that inflation has come down from in the low 8s to now being in the low 4s. So we've seen a significant reduction there. But we also have seen unemployment not go up as much as the market would have expected 6 or 12 months ago. So the overall path in terms of how it's affecting people in terms of unemployment is one that I think has been broadly one that is welcome. But also what we're seeing is that real wages are starting to move again. So across all those major measures of what actually matters to people, their real wages, the rate at which people are employed, and also achieving that with inflation coming down, it's a broadly a good set of figures on the macro economy, although there is a ways to go still before inflation gets
What happened
within
to
the band.
Labor putting downward pressure, though, on cost of living? I mean, the results show it's getting the opposite of what Labor promised.
Well, so on that, I mean, if you look at our, and if we go back to the tax cuts, I mean, our changes to the stage 3 tax cuts were revenue neutral, which the Reserve Bank and Treasury have both said won't have an effect on their inflation expectations. But what we see today from the Shadow Assistant Treasurer is a thought bubble, very much in line with what Susan Ley seemed to be saying, of a $40 billion change in the tax position over the forward estimates. Now, really, the onus is on the opposition, rather than just saying we like lower taxes, to explain how would that not be inflationary. $40 billion is huge.
All right, well, we're running out of time, but I just want to get to you, David, because before we go, you've met with farmers in Perth who are very concerned about the phase-out of live sheep exports today. What did they tell you?
Yeah, look, this government doesn't have the courage of their own conviction. The Prime Minister was here a couple of weeks ago and didn't have the courage to go and face up to these farmers and explain the science and the economics around the decision to phase out live sheep. And all we're doing is exporting animal welfare standards to countries like Ethiopia and Sudan, who have less standards than us. They are morally bankrupt in thinking that we are going to improve animal welfare standards globally because we do them best here in this country and we set the standard. And so what we're hearing from these farmers today is the actual economic trauma that is ripping across their kitchen tables now because the investment confidence has been shattered. This government won't even hand over a report that shows why they've done it. And yet these people are being left to see their whole industry destroyed, but their income's destroyed. Now, what government does that to their own Australian people when there is an opportunity to continue on with the trade that needs to continue? You can't process them here. This is a cultural issue where these countries want live sheep, so they're processed in country. And it's arrogant and ignorant of this government to think that these Middle Eastern countries do not want live sheep. So if we don't do them, someone else will.
It's a really tough topic, I've got to say, one that certainly needs some debating. David Littleproud, David Molino, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Well, coming up after a 2-month hiatus, reports the Princess of Wales is entering back into the public eye, or is she? We'll speak with one royal expert with the inside scoop. Well, after vanishing from the public eye for 2 months, the Princess of Wales is back, or is she? She was first spotted in a car on Monday for the first time since her abdominal surgery, and then came reports that Kate Middleton would review the dress rehearsal at Horse Guards Parade for the Trooping of the Colour in June. But it seems that may no longer be the case. The Army has since removed mention of Kate attending, just 12 hours after announcing the tickets were on sale. And joining me to discuss this is Daily Mirror's royal editor, Russell Myers. Russell, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us. What's this all about? Will she be making an appearance or not?
Well, it's a great question. Good evening, Danica. I mean, listen, it's been a bit of a quandary over the last 24 hours. And, the sort of rumour mill has been swirling on social media. Where is Kate? We haven't seen her since Christmas Day. Then she was photographed being driven in a car with her mother on Monday. And that's the first time we've seen her since this abdominal surgery. She's taking this leave of absence after being in hospital. I know the palace have said that she would have a sort of staggered return. We wouldn't expect her back till Easter. Then yesterday, the Ministry of Defence posted that she would be returning to royal duties just before the King's official birthday for Trooping the Colour. So, lots of excitement about that. Kensington Palace got involved. They said we're the only people who are going to confirm her diary. Somebody's basically had their hands dragged over the coals about making such a big mistake as putting that diary entry out online, and it's been taken off. So your guess is as good as mine at the moment, Danica.
Yeah, that's a huge mistake because it certainly caused a lot of rumours. So, as you said, your guess is as good as anyone's. Be interesting to see what happens. Now, the big news down under, as you know, this week is the potential arrival of King Charles later this year, and preparations are underway for this royal visit. But Russell, given the cancer diagnosis, is there still confidence that he will indeed come to Australia this year?
Well, I think it's a positive step. I mean, Anthony Albanese said this week that they would be welcoming, or certainly plans are in place to welcome the King later on in the year. One would assume that that would happen alongside the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which is in Samoa in October. So I think it's a positive step. Very, very different tact between the palaces. The King has been very, very open, first of all about his enlarged prostate procedure. Then, of course, his cancer diagnosis. We've seen him out and about whilst he's undergoing treatment. Very, very different, of course, to the Princess of Wales, who is respecting her, trying to respect her own privacy. But I do think this is a positive step. I think that we will have these plans, enlarged over the next few months, and certainly the King and Queen will be very, very keen to come and see you guys as soon as possible.
Well, hopefully, and I know the states here have been quabbling over which state he may visit, so it remains to be seen which one he actually goes to. Now, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, she's actually made a surprise trip down under herself to Melbourne this week for the first Australian Global Citizen Now Summit. Russell, was anyone on your side of the world aware of this visit?
No, very, very interesting, this. I mean, Fergie's sort of diary is very, very eclectic. She was at the Bahrain Grand Prix over the weekend, mixing with Christian Horner. I mean, he's going through his own sort of scandal and allegations at the moment, as well as Sarah Ferguson is well used to dealing with her ex-husband, Prince Andrew. But, good news for Fergie recently. She's just been cleared of her secondary skin cancer. That's great news for her. And she's got a packed diary moving forward. Very difficult to sort of keep track of what she's up to. She's not a member of the royal family anymore. However, I think, people see her as a great survivor. They're very, very interested in seeing what she's doing. And she does have a good relationship with the King as well. They've been speaking to each other about their cancer diagnosis. And, it's all systems go for her.
It is all systems go. Russell Myers, we've got to go. Thank you so much for joining us. And that's all we've got time for today. Stay tuned. Paul Murray is up next.